Virtual Radio Week. Total Remote. Best practices for operating a radio or podcast remotely. A week dedicated to total remote radio.
Let's go for this week that we have concocted with Edition HF teams, Nicolas Moir, François Querel, and Brulatou and myself. We're very happy to have you again live. It's 2 p.m. and it's in English every afternoon. We'll have the pleasure to do it in French in the morning. So a unique week that will remain in our memories as a reminder of this historic confined period. There will be something for all levels and all tastes. So yes, we are slowly coming out of this period, and all the radios in the world for many weeks have been finding and have found solutions, tools, software, and have fought to continue to inform, entertain, and brighten our days. Yet they can no longer afford it, but the passion in our profession is well known and often stronger than anything else. So this week is also a tribute to you, the stations that fight, to your microphones addicts. Our goal is to showcase you and our industry, as we do with all our media. So how are these days going to go? First of all, we are live at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. in the morning in French, Central European time. And then at 2 p.m. in English, Central European time as well. Throughout the day, our channel will be broadcasted on ConnectOnAir.com, Lettre.pro, our Facebook and Twitter pages with custom programming. To know where to go and where to click, only one address, the agenda on ConnectOnAir.com or on virtualradioweek.com. You also have a button on every page that will direct you, depending on the time of the day, to the right address. Access live, access to recorded content, and access to webinars. And we just remind you that webinars will not be broadcast on Facebook, Twitter, Lettre.pro, or ConnectOnAir. To follow live webinars and interact, ask questions, you have to register. The link can be found in the agenda of the main, if you click the main button at the top of the ConnectOnAir pages, or in the agenda in the different conference that you can click on. So we're very happy to welcome Nicolas Moulard and François Querel, who worked with us on this program, which is very interesting. We started this morning with the president of the French authority, and we wanted to start this morning, Nicolas, also with some guests. But Nicolas, maybe you can explain to us the 4 main topics that will happen this week.
Of course. Hello, everybody. For those who follow us directly live or afterwards in replay. I'm based in Madrid. I'm at home, like most of you, certainly over the last weeks, long weeks. And basically, we reorganized, and we wanted to support all the radio people also doing operation from remote, trying to share experiences and to discover different solutions that are used and put in operation to run the operation of the radio. So basically, this week we built it up under 4 thematics, 1 per day, starting today with to prepare a program from home. Tomorrow, Tuesday, will be about remote contribution. So how do we transport the audio from your home to the homes, between studios? And on Wednesday, we'll talk about remote programming, talking about the specificity of working on a program, building with content about music, about audio, and including live, about advertising, but in remote condition. And we'll finish on Thursday with remote broadcasting and how to secure to get your signal on air and checking every point of the chain that needs to be secure. So this is a full 360 program on everything about operating radio from home.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicola, about that. So we're going to welcome, I think, our first guest. Unless François wants to say a little word first of hello, or you're okay?
Just hi everyone. But just if you speak English, we invite you to see again, maybe to watch again the first morning in French with the very interesting interview with Roch-Olivier Mers, the French president of CSA, and with Coé, a very famous DJ producer in Energy, a very famous station in France and in Europe, you know. And we invite you to see if you speak English in English. And now, if you speak if you speak in French, but if you speak in English, stay with us.
Okay, so here you're on, Graham Dixon. Thank you very much,
Hi.
Graham, for coming and having this moment with us. First of all, how are you, Graham?
Well, we're in London. We came to London at one point, and then the office in Geneva has been closed because we had one of the very early cases in Switzerland. And so we've stayed on in my son's flat in London for the moment. And at some point, we'll get back to Geneva and see my colleagues again. But in the meantime, we're working extremely hard, supporting our members in 56 countries. And you know, in a strange way, there's more contact than there is normally, because we seem to be talking all the time with our members now that we are actually just using these technologies far more than clearly we can't have physical meetings. So there's a high level of communication, and actually it's really inspiring what the radio world is doing.
Yeah, it is very inspiring. So what is the situation? You're talking about all those countries with all your members around the world. What is the situation in the European public media and radio since the beginning of this crisis?
Well, I talked about inspiring. I think it is really inspiring. I mean, our members moved incredibly quickly in a number of ways. One, some of them were better equipped than others to be able to leave the building and go for remote broadcasting. And then, of course, that raises other questions. I think questions you'll be looking at in some of the more technical sessions, like, you know, how do you actually get enough equipment to be able to put broadcasting capacity into everyone's homes? How, when you need to upload things to the servers of the radio stations, you know, back at base, you know, is there sufficient capacity to transfer? So, you know, these challenges are there, but I think these challenges were, you know, quite quickly overcome. And I'm amazed looking around the internet and seeing our members to see, you know, we've never seen into so many people's houses before now, and to see the houses that are being transformed into studios. I was listening to a BBC station this morning, and yeah, the colleague that I know from when I worked at the BBC, you know, he was broadcasting from his bedroom. These are the sort of things we've never known. So the technical challenge, in a sense, is just one aspect of it. What's also really important is that in that we're talking about providing a public service. Clearly, the public, the audience, is in a very different position from the way it normally is in normal times, and therefore adapting the programming as well is a really important thing, and has also been quite inspiring. I can share something more about that if you like.
Yeah, but radio stations are very agile. We know about that, and we saw in France and in the French-talking countries, and we've done a live every day with some stations to see how they were reacting, and we really I think there's a lot of things that have been created. I mean, they had more links with their listeners.
Yeah.
They have more so a lot of new ideas came out as well. And did you feel that regarding your members, that they brought in a lot of great ideas?
Yes, absolutely. I want to say just one thing about agility and flexibility. Of course, we know that, you know, we can change the schedule of a radio station in a flow program just by having a different interviewee. So that's very simple. We can also, from a technological point of view, I'm very inspired by what they do in Sweden, which is they can broadcast. They've been planning already to be very close to members with their local radio, and they've got a sort of rucksack thing, a backpack from which you can broadcast a whole station from the middle of a field. I find that type of thing incredibly incredibly inspiring, and actually that closeness to listeners. Well, the technology, I think, is there. One of the funniest pictures, because we all need to laugh occasionally in these days, one of the funniest pictures that I've ever seen is actually a reporter who's allowed out interviewing someone with the entry phone in front of their flat, because of course they couldn't go and meet them, but they were holding up a microphone to the entry phone of a flat and making the interview like that. So look, this is a really flexible medium, and the last few months have really shown how flexible it is. It's close to audiences. I think it gives audiences a sense of community when you're isolated, hearing other voices, being in touch with a wider public. And of course, I think with phone-ins, people have been able to have a space in which they can express their own anxieties, their own fears, and actually feel that they're not alone. And I think that the intimacy of the human voice is a very, very, very powerful tool in that. Having said that, I think looking around our members, we can see they've also changed their programs. I mean, I think of some various ones. One, how are you going to do humor in this period? Because, we do need to laugh despite the tragic happenings. And, a number of our members have launched specifically humorous programs and podcasts, which is extraordinary. But more seriously, in terms of psychological support, I see that on air around Europe, we have quite a number of people who are, qualified as therapists, as psychiatrists, and even reaching out to children to let them explain their fears and get some assistance in those areas. Talking of children, talking of youth, I think the kids' response on radio has been extraordinary, with the development of a whole new curriculum, really, for radio. We see that happening, say, in a country like Romania, where, the education has moved onto the radio. Fantastic. And, there are all these areas, but at the core of it, of course, and really important, when you can read any dreadful rubbish and nonsense on social media with people's uninformed opinions, I think at a time like this, it's really important, and public media has shown this, to have qualified journalists who can speak with authority, journalists who can actually deliver a really considered opinion to audiences. And I think that's what audience really appreciate. And the trust between audience and the radio organization, I think, is really important.
So most of the stations were already were kind of ready to be like that, to be total remote. But maybe not all of them were really using it 100%, and that was the big change. I mean, I know we're not going to talk technically, but technically, did you have some feedback that everything was fine, or they had to adapt their way of working, or basically most of your members were really ready for this kind of situation?
Yeah, well, of course it changes between the more technologically advanced countries and some that are less. But I should say that when we have a round table with members now, what they're all doing is extraordinarily impressive. I mean, there is nothing more urgent, really, than you always talk about, in normal times when you're trying, to manage change in an organization, you talk about the fact that you need to show why it's important to change. And of course, in this type of circumstance, no one is in any doubt that it's important to change. Some people are having more difficulties than others, and I think that's more about individuals than about organizations. But nonetheless, the speed of change is just extraordinary. And we talk and have talked a long time at the EBU about our digital transformation initiative, and suddenly we've moved forward what may have been 2 or 3 years, who knows, in terms of digital transformation with some organizations, because frankly you don't have an alternative.
Graham, this morning we published on La Lettre Pro de la Radio, the French website about the radio industry, a study, Trust in Media, from EBU. We can see that radio is widely acclaimed by the listener in Europe. You can see some data on the screen about this study, Trust in Media in Europe. The radio is in the first place. Can you talk about maybe this study? It's traditional study. It's not a surprise because it's sometimes, every time, it's the radio station. The radio is the most reliable media, and the same in France for any study.
Yeah, look, it's very funny. Every time this study is published every year, frankly, it doesn't change very much. And as we can see, if people go to your website where you've put some of these EBU slides, you can see that radio across Europe is just such a trusted medium. It always makes me incredibly happy to see it. And, you know, you find yourself in terms of trust with radio, and then, you know, right at the end, the social networks. So, you know, we've got an intelligent public out there, and a public that can see where things are being properly researched and where things are correct and being looked at. And I think that that's is really very, very important. You know, it comes as no surprise, today's study, because we're already getting indications from members of vastly increased listening, particularly listening to news in the first weeks of this, and also where they've been measuring it. You know, not everyone is measuring it so regularly, but where they've been measuring it, we can also see a bigger increase in trust, which I think, you know, will take the trust index for radio beyond the ones that you actually published today. And therefore, look, this is a very, very important thing, because ultimately, life is really about trust, isn't it? If you haven't got trust, if you're trying to sell a product, if you haven't got trust that you didn't print your banknote yourself, if you haven't got trust in your friend, in your family, then actually you really can't get started. So the fact that there is strong trust in radio is an intimate medium, and a medium that, you know, gives you the pure human voice, plus of course some music, but certainly the pure human voice talking one-to-one, you know, that is a very, very special thing, inviting that voice into your home, becoming familiar with it, and feeling that sense of trust. So look, I'm very, very happy with the survey. I should be fascinated if there is a COVID-19 version of this survey, because I think that, again, radio will be shown to have gained considerably in trust in the last few months.
So have radio stations in Italy, Spain, and England suffered more from this crisis? Do you think so?
I don't know whether suffered. I mean, you know, of course we've all suffered as human beings. I don't. Yes, I mean, you're talking about the three countries with the most, yes, the most deaths. Yeah, England, Spain, and Italy. That's that. UK, Spain, and Italy. That's absolutely true. No, I think because of, I think the deciding factor is not really the deaths, although clearly there has to be, and I can see a sensitivity, of course, to the human tragedy that underlies all of this. But no, I think the deciding factor for our EBU members, and not just EBU members, for the commercial radio sector as well, has been how you work during lockdown. So, you know, what you do, you get your technology in place, you use the building as little as possible, you make as much production remote. You then clearly need to, you know, divide your staff where they have to go into the building into teams, so if one is affected, the other isn't. All of these things are about ensuring business continuity. So, of course, there's a bigger challenge where there are more cases, but nonetheless, because, you know, of the duty of care to personnel, which also, and the personnel's well-being, which lies at the heart of this, and which I can really see as one of the values of our members, which is, what is the impact on our staff, on our personnel? I can really see from that the measures you would take in a country with a lot of cases, UK, Italy, Spain, is exactly the same as in a country with fewer cases, because frankly, you can't be too careful.
So EBU is supporting all year round their members. How did you do something particular to support your radio station during this crisis?
Yeah, well, we just very quickly, within days really, we realized that one of the things we do as the EBU is sharing best practice, is talking to each other, and as a network, really making sure that we're not, as I think you say in French as well, reinventing the wheel all the time, because sharing is a really important thing, but also, of course, contributing the expertise that we, the EBU, have in Geneva, because we can see the big picture. So what we did practically was we put round tables in place for our members so that they could start to share their, what they are actually doing, how they are reacting. And there was an enormous amount of mutual learning there. We did that very quickly. In radio so far, we've had 3 round tables, general ones for members. We've had one about schedule changes. We've had another one about what technology to use. And look, these have been really well attended. And the idea, therefore, I think that's been our main way of communication. But we were meant also to be having our annual meeting for all the radio directors of public radios across Europe in Cologne 2 weeks ago. And yeah, we moved that online. We made the sessions a lot shorter because no one wants to spend 8 hours a day sitting in front of a screen with Zoom. We made the sessions shorter, but there were very good attendance and a very good engagement. And of course, like many organizations, I'm sure we're thinking how this can make us, more communicative, more agile in the future as a result of what we're learning. We're learning all the time, aren't we?
In your opinion, what traces will leave this crisis when it leaves Europe? Some mergers, some acquisitions, some liquidation, and what do you think the lessons we can draw from that?
Yeah, I don't want to be drawn into a question because I'm not so expert. I know a bit on the situation for the commercial radios, but clearly. I speak to our colleagues, they are in Brussels Radio Association, and it's completely obvious to me that there are major financial challenges there. I've just seen in the UK that the British government is giving money to community radio stations, les radios associatives, in order to keep those going. So there is going to be a real challenge about maintaining media diversity, and I think that also goes for media of all sorts. It could go for the press, it goes for radio, goes for television. As far as our members are concerned, I think they were always quite agile. I think they're going to be much more agile now they're used to the technology and employing that technology and of learning from each other in a more urgent way. I think they will really know that being close to audiences is so important. Because at a time like this, being there for audiences and not moving away from them is something that's just incredibly important. And yeah, in all, I think, we come back to trust again. We had a long discussion of it earlier, but trust is the most important thing, doing everything to be trustworthy. I remember a conversation at the BBC where I think we were, 5 minutes after some other medium in terms of some news reporting quite early in my BBC career. And someone said, well, actually, the important thing is we're correct. It doesn't matter whether we're, 5 minutes late, but actually we are correct and people can trust us. And as I say, I think trust runs through society. And you can see that now, relationship between public and government. but where there's high trust, we are in perhaps a better position to resolve this type of crisis.
Thank you very much, Graham. Just for you to know, we are now together with our next guest, and she's online. She doesn't know about it yet. Hello to Laurie Martinez. Laurie, may I introduce you to Graham Dixon from the BU? Laurie, we're going to talk podcast, Graham. Now, I think a lot of your members are very active in podcasting and native podcast more and more, if I'm correct. Graham.
Extremely. I mean, I remember the early days of podcasts at the BBC where everything had also to be broadcast on radio before going into podcasts. But actually now the way that our members have moved forward with podcasts as well in creating new formats and, the liberation of being able to make podcasts of any length and actually just to put them out when there's a story, when it's necessary. Not, to be confined to, Tuesday afternoon at 2:00 for 45 minutes. That has been an enormous step forward. And, very, very, very exciting, that extra space that, not just our members, but anyone creative in the audio industry is going to enjoys at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Graham, for being with us, and we'll keep in touch, of course, in all the different events. If we can meet again in some events this year, which we don't know, even know if the IBC will be held, but hopefully we'll meet very soon. Thank you very much, Graham.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Et bonjour, no, we stay in English, sorry. Hello, Laurie Martinez. Very nice to meet you. You're from Ochenta, that's how you pronounce it? Ochenta. Yeah, Ochenta, like in Spanish. Ochenta Podcast Production Studio. So can you just maybe present yourself and Ochenta? Go ahead.
And received quite a few. It was #1 fiction on
Laurie,
podcast.
we had a small issue with the sound.
Yeah,
sorry.
sure.
So we just sorry for the
me?
listeners. We had some little issue with the sound. So now we can start again. So we are with Laurie Martinez. Can you so just in a few words present Studio Ochenta? Now I can say it right because no one listened to me before. And what is your role in Ochenta Studio?
So I am the founder of Studio Ochenta. It's a multilingual podcast company based in Paris, France. We produce shows in English, French, and Spanish primarily, but we also produce shows in Italian, Dutch, and very soon in Mandarin Chinese. Our flagship show is Miha Podcast. It was an audio drama podcast released in English, French, and Spanish simultaneously. It recently was named a Webby Award honoree, and for quite a long time it was #1 in audio fiction in Spain and France. So really proud of that accomplishment.
Okay, so most podcasters are natively working from home. Is it your case at Studio Ochenta? And were you more prepared to lockdown than radio? How does the pandemic affect you in your operation?
Well, in terms of day-to-day, Ochenta is particular in the sense that though we are based in Paris, I work quite a bit with remote producers in different cities. So in terms of getting people to go into a studio, that was something that we didn't necessarily have to do because we could have a local producer do something from home as well, out of Spain or out of out of Italy. So that wasn't a problem because each producer has their own equipment at their home. But it definitely changed the priorities in terms of content. I think a lot of podcasters saw the way that listeners reacted to the pandemic in terms of content. People were listening to quite a lot of podcasts related to COVID and live programming necessarily.
Sorry, Laurie, the link is a little bit difficult.
Yeah,
sorry,
the connection.
Yes.
We just hear some artifacts that are coming in the way. So can you just take it again? Yeah, just the last sentence.
So I was saying that we saw that listeners were focusing on different kinds of content. So lifestyle content was not as popular in the first weeks of COVID, and we saw a listener drop. And I had to make some editorial decisions related to that. We had a Spanish program about travel that was going to launch in March that we had to cancel. We also had a wine podcast that was going to be coming out in French, and that also had to be pushed back in terms of release. But actually, once you decide to make these kind of choices, you can pivot towards content that that your listeners are going to relate to. And so instead of focusing on lifestyle, we decided kind of towards things that were related to the pandemic, but in what we know how to do, which is storytelling. So we pushed towards a podcast that is crowdsourced. So again, working with the remote idea of people who are fully equipped in their home with their radio kits, having them send in stories and pitch to us stories in different languages. And so we have a show called 80 Stories that kind of rose out of that, already kind of taking the model of remote work and then going even further during the pandemic and going international because everyone is on lockdown and you kind of have to take advantage of the fact that, there are producers who can't go out and record, but they can certainly write stories at home and record their own narratives. So that is something that we definitely focused on.
So it was hard on a financial point of view, but pretty creative and maybe easier for you because of the fact that people were home.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just original releases, that on the release point, we had to be, but on the production side, we actually ended up getting more branded podcast requests for content that was related to the pandemic. So we Meetic Group and a local French podcast production company called Lettre sur écoute, and we adapted a French podcast about love in quarantine into Spanish, Italian, English, and Dutch. And that was during the pandemic with a fully remote team working out of the Netherlands, Rome, and Madrid, and also Paris. So that is something that was really interesting, is kind of going even further with our own original remote strategies, but even making sure that the content itself would continue to be published regardless.
So what podcasters and all the people you're working with can teach about this quarantine? What do you get from it at the final point?
I think podcasters, and whether they be amateur or fully production companies, we all kind of have this we wear many hats mentality where you can have the same person writing, voicing the program, producing it, publishing it. A lot of the time in radio, especially in big stations, all of these roles are split between different people. And what's really interesting here is that what you have is this podcaster model being used by the radio people to keep their shows going, which I think is really great. You end up having the many hats model work again. I mean, my training was from public radio in the United States, and all the producers know how to do all the elements and aspects of production for this reason, because you never know if in the field you're going to have to end up doing the recording yourself, or if you're going to end up having to do, there's no other engineer. So I think it's really great that this pandemic is also giving broadcasters the opportunity to kind of have their employees look at the other aspects of production and be able to do them on their own end.
Thank you very much, Laurie Martinez. So we just put up immediately our new guest that maybe that you've seen on your browser, but maybe that you never met before. Dave Crookston. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Hi guys. How's everyone doing?
Yeah, we're doing really well. Thank you very much. So we are talking podcast and new experiments. So we are going to share. So Laurie, if you want to stay, of course, you're really welcome to stay and listen to us on the browser. We'll go on with Dave, who's from Hits Radio from Barrow Group Media in UK, and he's got a lot of very funny experience that we have. So thank you very much, Laurie, and we'll meet certainly after this pandemic is finished. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Dave, so we are together to try to share the situation that you have. Can you just present Hits Radio and maybe very shortly Bauer's Group in UK?
Bauer is a large radio group, like you said, broadcasting across the UK. We have brands such as Magic Radio, Kiss FM, Hits Radio, Greatest Hits Radio, among many more. I'm primarily based in the Manchester office, where we provide Hits Radio and Greatest Hits Radio and Rock FM. Breakfast shows, and we are a network hub that feed out to lots of other sites.
So can you share with us how simple or how hard it was to move presenters out of the studio to home broadcasting?
It was an interesting challenge. It's got to be said. I think it was the importance of leaving beautiful soundproof studios and then all of a sudden broadcasting from people's kitchens seemed to be one of the biggest challenge. I think I can share an image. It was going from these studios where you can see soundproofed, nice and treated professional microphones, basically dropping to this setup, which is a reflection filter, a USB microphone.
Can you show the picture? Can you show the former picture, because we're going to put it up?
Oh, sorry. There you go.
From there. Yeah. Okay. Here we see it now. The first picture with a guy with the arms up.
Yeah. This isn't our current breakfast lineup, but this will show you roughly the studios that we were coming from. Mm-hmm. As you can see, it's all pretty much standard radio equipment, but lovely and soundproof. And you know, it sounds like a FM radio station. But then it was dropping down to a reflection filter and a USB microphone. Was the model we ended up going for. I think a lot of, in the run up to lockdown, it was a bit of a dash to grab what equipment was available, and making choices. You know, what has everybody got? What's going to be easiest to get to people? So it was a case of these reflection filters were available, which we'd used before, the Ashton ones, which are very good, and the Audio-Technica microphones, again, very good. Simple to get in one box, get to a presenter, and it could plug into any laptop and give us the ability to broadcast. I think, especially to start with, when we were doing these, or getting people broadcasting from home, it was kind of the assumption was there'd be nobody in any of the buildings. So we had to aim for a model of nobody in the building. What was the best way to get content in, whether it was recording links, sending in, or a live option, which is why we ended up primarily to start with using IPDTL, which just seemed very easy, especially on the recording side of things. We moved from the studios, we moved to people's kitchens. So as you can see from this image, you're in every engineer's worst nightmare of lots of shiny surfaces to reflect the sound off, a nice solid wooden floor. This is where the reflection filters really came into their own. It was all about trying to unify the sound for every presenter on the Hits radio network, so that would then make life easy for us to process the microphones and make them sound as close to how they were sounding when they were actually in the FM studios. But we were like, here we're in someone's kitchen. This is obviously someone's converted garage, again with a reflection filter. You can also see they've put the microphone together the wrong way, but obviously it's the working model for them. which makes life easy. The reflection filter we chose was an Aston, but we did see some interesting versions of reflection filters of homemade variety.
That's really fun.
I mean, that's really, really clever and a good way to do it. They've covered all the bases, but we ended up going for the Aston version. Which is frighteningly good at cutting down room echo. In fact, it got to the point where it was behaving too well. So we had to work with moving the microphones around to actually get a little bit of room noise back in to make them sound a little bit more natural. We also had fun and games with presenters. Once they got home, of course, we were sending equipment out to presenters, not very technically minded people, who then were having to set things up for themselves. So we were having to try and fault find and learn. I think there's quirks to every broadcast situation where you learn how to deal with them. It's day-to-day faults that come in. And this was a whole new learning curve of how people could potentially not get things right. We struggled for a couple of days with one presenter not sounding 100% right on the microphone, and we were trying to work out what it was until she posted on social media a photograph, and we could see that when she was talking into the microphone, and you'll have to excuse me blurring the face so I don't get in trouble, but you could see the back of the microphone, or here, which is the blue LED light, is actually the front of the microphone. We hadn't spotted this, and it was only when this picture came up on social media that we realised. And it was only when we got more stock of the microphone and actually looked, it does actually say back on the back of the microphone. So it was it was a bit of a funny, and again, it's one of these things where we've had to learn to actually utilize, photographs of situations, FaceTime, Teams, Quick Assist, lots of different ways that we can help people remotely. Other things that we came across was Radio City, one of our radio stations in Liverpool. During the breakfast show, one of the presenters' mics started to break up, started to crackle. Then we got a picture of the cable, and you can just see there's some damage to the cable, and that damage was caused live on air by a dog.
Oh.
And the dog actually chewed through the microphone cable mid-broadcast, which unfortunately I've not got the audio, but it did make for a very funny link. The other things that we've had to take into account is, as we've all known, we're at the mercy of the internet with all our broadcasting at the minute. It was trying to change the way people were using the internet. We'd have a show, potentially the audio breaking up, and trying to work out what was going on and having to ask questions about what other people were doing in the house at the same time. So we've had Netflix causing us, or Amazon Prime causing issues, people in other rooms. One member of the breakfast team had himself trying to do a live broadcast, his wife trying to work from home, and two small children on tablets, and not enough bandwidth to provide for the entire broadcast. So again, it's trying to manage how fast people's internet connections are.
Yeah, how are you able to support them from a distance? It was not a big issue to send the equipment to all the people that wanted to work from home?
Luckily, some courier services in the UK were still operating. So we did manage to send out quite easily to some people. So yeah, once we got the equipment, the big one was making sure suppliers were open. So it was make sure suppliers are open, find out what they had, and they had large numbers of, which they could then send out to us, and we could forward on to the presenters. And then, like I said, it was using whatever tools we possibly had to be able to jump on people's computers remotely. This wasn't such an issue with laptops that we'd sent out, which have VPN access, but users using their own computers at home, it got a bit tricky, having to use things like TeamViewer and talk them through the install of that to be able to offer support.
So do you plan to come back to the real studio, and how technically will that work out?
We are just starting to look into that situation, really. I was into the building on Thursday last week, and it was us just trying to, well, I don't know if I can show you this image. It was, where are we? It was walking around the studios with a tape measure, which was actually starting to measure what the distance was, what 2 meters actually meant in a studio. So at the minute, we've got producers or single producers in the studios. They're dealing with the broadcast coming in. But we are starting now to think how we could actually get people back in the building. So it's going to be careful ways of, trying to use small corridors, making sure there's a one-way system. One of the biggest challenges at the minute is providing hand sanitizer and antibacterial wipes for the studios, because it's, again, stock is coming in and flying out the doors. It's being able to secure enough to keep us in the building, because if we run out, it's whether we can guarantee a safe working space without those products.
So what's and that will be the last question, and then tomorrow we will have the pleasure to have you again more onto the remote contribution, more technically aspect of all that we talked about today. But what is the biggest find? Is it the change of mentality, or the fact that it's possible not to have studio? Really?
I think it's possible to survive without studios. I think that the big thing is it was, especially with more than a single presenter in a studio. So a breakfast show with 3 presenters, or 2 presenters in a drive show. I suppose you miss them being able to see each other real time, line of sight, being able to bounce off each other with content. I think a lot of the creativity, there's a struggle with that sometimes, which is there's not a programs team sat together coming up with crazy ideas. So it's been a massive learning curve, and I think everyone's coping with it really well. I just think I think it's going to, the longer we're out of the studios, people seem to be coping better, coming up with better ways of doing things. So it's definitely been an interesting one. But the push towards technology and pick up very quickly has been very interesting.
So I guess you're not in charge of that, but it's also a period financially which is complicated.
Yeah, it's from speaking to other departments, I think it's the sales teams are having a real tough time at the minute, but you'd like to hope as businesses start to reopen and things hopefully start to ease, this will be something that will hopefully recover quickly as well, and starting to think of different ways to help out our advertisers.
Well, we wish you the best, and thank you really very much for all those interesting pictures and sharing you're doing with us. If viewers and listeners, you want to hear a little more technical, tomorrow we'll go into detail of the remote contribution and the DTSL that you were talking about, as this was not really the subject today, but we'll go on with some advice. Nicolas, thank you very much, Dave, and see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, we're gonna go overseas in Canada with Simon Forbes. Is from the organization in Canada, and it's gonna give 5 advices to produce radio quality from home studio. This is a little video from Simon Forbes.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll just go on with the virtual radio week all the afternoon. You will have a lot of different webinars to show. There's no registration on those ones. It's just to go on the web page, and you will see it starts in a few minutes. We're a bit late for the webinars, but 3 minutes, you will see the coronavirus emergency recording studio set up by Mike Russell, and the link will be very shortly put up on the agenda. Then we will have at 3 the virtual console from Wheatstone and Jay Tyler that will present us the virtual console of Wheatstone Glass E. And right after Wheatstone Remix, virtual mixing application for remote broadcast. And we'll finish by Telos, who will show us some home broadcasting series, home studios with Paul Montoya, and it's Kirk Harnack that will present that to us. So stay with us on ConnectOnAir.com and Virtual Radio Week.
And we will see you again tomorrow morning in French with Yves Bigot. It's the director, the head of TV5 World. It's the French channel All the World in French. And
exactly.
he will be with us tomorrow morning at 9 for the French session in the Virtual Radio Week.
And this live will be supported by AETA Audio Systems, which makes codecs in the morning, and also at 2 p.m. Tomorrow in the afternoon he will also be sponsor of this moment. And then you will see on the agenda that we have some digigram webinars, we have some tie-line and self-diffusion webinars, and then of course a debate in the afternoon at 2 p.m. with Mark Farrington that we had Dave Crookston that we have today, Mark Farrington also from Bauer Media, Etienne Desroseaux from the EBU, and Giovanni Ridolfi from RAI, Radio Televisione Italiana, and of course Johan von Arburg from AETA Audio System. And we'll finish the day with a lot of other webinars from Digigram, and last webinar on how to grow your audience using podcasting in remote with James Mulvaney from matchmaker.fm, radio.co and podcast.co. So the 5 advice from ARC in Canada, and Simon Fogg that will tell us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow at 9 if you talk French, and at 2 p.m. if you don't talk French.
And every day until Thursday.
Take care and stay home.
Virtual Radio Week. Total remote. Best practices for operating a radio or podcast remotely. A week dedicated to total remote radio.
Hello, my name is Simon Forgue. I am the Director of Communication at l'Alliance des radios communautaires du Canada, which is an association of French language radio stations in linguistic minority situation in Canada. Today, I'm giving you some advice on how to produce your show at home when you are in lockdown, as you are actually. My first advice, if you record your show, is set a time of the day to record exactly like if it was a real show. No chat, no email, or no poker online at this moment, of course. That will be your recording session, and that will be much easier to respect your time frame and your delivery schedule. So tell your mom, dad, and friends, please don't call me between 6 and 9 because I'm on a recording session, as simple as that. In a few words, cut the bridges with external life. Nothing is more distracting than Facebook and Twitter for losing your attention. So stay focused on your show during your recording session. My second advice would be do the math. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be very productive and creative at home. You can do miracles with just a few bucks and even free in some cases. You can build an IP codec, for example, with just a Raspberry Pi and in-codec firmware from sip.audio. You can create your own music bed in Audio Tool for free. You can do audio edition with Audacity, which is another free solution. So don't think you have to spend thousands of dollars. It's not always the case. Third, and this is in straight line with my previous point, at least don't be too cheap. Of course, you can do miracles with just a few dollars, as I told you. But if you buy too cheap equipment, you'll get cheap results. When you buy a mic, for example, you certainly get better result if you buy a brand like Electro Voice, Samson, or Audio-Technica instead of those cheap microphones for podcaster or YouTuber that you'll find on Amazon or AliExpress. The better the mic is and the headphone is, the better the sound will be. So be sure to choose quality equipment, even if you don't have to pay a truckload of money. Also, do as you would if you were live in studio. Prepare a log for your show. That will be easier to stay focused, even if it's pre-recorded. If you have a good plan, you will know where you are in your recording session and what you have to do before sending the final version. It's not because you are at home that you have to be less prepared. And finally, my last point, if you need a cloud storage for free to store and share your audio files, choose wisely. For example, you'll get 2 gig for free with Dropbox Basic, of course, but do you know that you can get 5 gigs for free if you have a Microsoft account? Even Amazon offers 5 gig of cloud storage if you have an account with them. You'll even get 15 gigs for free with Google Drive. But don't forget, it will include the space for your email and photo. So compare the offers available. Some of them are really interesting and really, really cheap. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll have fun in your recording session.
Virtual Radio Week. Total remote.